The first time my husband cried in front of me was the day the doctor called him infertile, not when his father died, not when his business failed, not even on our wedding day. It was in that cold white hospital room. I still remember the sound of the air conditioner humming softly above us while the doctor adjusted his glasses and said, "Your chances of conceiving naturally are extremely low." My husband laughed at first, not because it was funny, because he thought the doctor had to be wrong. "You mixed up the results," he said. The doctor shook his head gently. "No, sir. We repeated the tests twice." And just like that, the strongest man I knew looked completely broken. On the drive home, he didn't say a word. His hand rested on the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned pale. I kept trying to comfort him. "We'll figure something out." Silence. "We can try treatment." Nothing. "We can adopt if you want." That's when he finally spoke. "So you already gave up on me?" I turned toward him quickly. "What?" "No," but he just stared at the road, and that was the moment I realized this wasn't just about having children. To him, this was about being a man. For weeks after the diagnosis, our home stopped feeling like home. The laughter disappeared first, then the touching, then the conversations. He became obsessed with work, stayed out late, started locking his phone. At first, I blamed the diagnosis. I told myself he was grieving, but grief slowly turned into anger. Small things started triggering him. One night I paused too long while watching a baby video online. He snapped, "Can you not do that in front of me?" Another time, his cousin brought her newborn to a family gathering. Everybody passed the baby around happily. When they handed the child to my husband, his smile looked forced. Later that night, he punched the bathroom mirror so hard it shattered. I cleaned blood from the sink while he sat on the floor breathing heavily. "I'm sorry," he whispered, and because I loved him, I forgave everything. People started asking questions. "Any babies yet? When are you two giving us good news? 3 years of marriage? What are you waiting for?" I learned how to fake smiles, learned how to laugh through humiliation, because nobody knew the truth except us. And I promised I never would, even when his own mother blamed me. His mother never liked me. She smiled around others, but when we were alone, her eyes changed. One afternoon she invited me over for lunch. Halfway through eating, she sighed dramatically. "You know, some women are not destined to be mothers." I froze. She continued calmly, "My son deserves a complete family." I wanted to scream, to tell her the problem wasn't me, but I kept quiet to protect him. Even after all the pain, I still protected his pride. Funny, isn't it, how women destroy themselves trying to protect men who would never do the same for them? Then came the morning everything changed. I woke up nauseous. The smell of eggs made me run to the bathroom. At first I assumed it was stress, but deep down, something felt different. On my way home from work, I bought a pregnancy test. I hid it beneath groceries so nobody would see. Even the cashier smiled and said, "Good luck." I laughed nervously. If only she knew. I took the test alone at midnight. My husband was asleep in the other room. The house was silent except for my heartbeat. One line appeared immediately, then another. Positive. I stared at it for almost 10 minutes, waiting for it to disappear. It didn't. My knees became weak, because happiness was the last thing I felt. Fear came first, pure fear. The next morning, I booked another test at the hospital, then another. Every single one confirmed the same thing. Pregnant, 8 weeks. I sat inside my car afterward staring blankly through the windshield. How was this possible? I had never cheated, not emotionally, not physically, never. I loved my husband too much for that, so why did this feel like a death sentence? For 2 days, I hid it from him. I needed time to think, but secrets inside marriage rot quickly. Eventually, I told him during dinner. The second the words left my mouth, everything changed. "I'm pregnant." His spoon froze midair, then slowly, he looked up at me. The expression on his face terrified me. Not sadness, not confusion, disgust. "No," he said quietly, "it's true." "No." I reached for his hand, but he pulled away instantly. "You think I'm stupid? I never cheated on you." His voice rose suddenly. "Then how are you pregnant?" The force of his scream made me flinch, and I saw it, the exact moment love turned into suspicion. That night he searched through my phone, every message, every contact, every social media app. When he found nothing, it somehow made him angrier, because if there was no evidence, then maybe the impossible was true, and that terrified him more. Days passed in cold silence, then the accusations started. Who's the father? Is it someone from work? How long has this been happening? Every conversation became an interrogation. One night he even asked, "Did you pity me so much you found another man to give you a baby?" That one broke me, because after everything I sacrificed for him, he still believed the worst about me. But the truth, he wasn't the only one hiding secrets. I started noticing changes too: perfume on his clothes, late night calls, excuses that didn't make sense. And suddenly I understood something. People who are guilty often accuse others first. One Friday night, he claimed he had a business meeting. But something inside me told me to follow him, so I did. His car stopped outside a luxury apartment building downtown, and 20 minutes later, a woman opened the door, beautiful, tall, elegant. She kissed him before he even entered. My chest tightened so painfully I could barely breathe. I sat there in silence watching the man who called me a cheater disappear into another woman's apartment. I didn't confront him immediately. I wanted proof, so for the next week, I watched quietly. Pictures, receipts, messages. Turns out the affair had been going on for almost a year, while I was defending him, protecting him, loving him. He was already betraying me. Then one night, fate exposed everything. He came home drunk, angrier than usual. "You ruined my life," he muttered while loosening his tie. I finally snapped. "No," I said calmly, "you ruined it yourself." He stared at me, and for the first time, I told him I knew about the other woman. His face lost all color. The argument that followed lasted hours, screaming, crying, broken glasses, and then he finally confessed something shocking. Months before my pregnancy, he secretly visited another fertility specialist overseas, a second opinion, and the results were different. He wasn't completely infertile. There was still a possibility he could conceive naturally, small, but possible. "You lied to me?" I whispered. "I didn't want hope," he shouted back. "Hope makes failure worse." But that wasn't the real reason. The real reason was pride. If he accepted treatment, he had to accept vulnerability, and instead of facing that pain honestly, he escaped into another woman's arms. A week later, we took a DNA test. The waiting nearly destroyed him. He barely ate, barely slept, and honestly, part of me wanted the baby not to be his, because then maybe all this suffering would at least make sense. But when the results arrived, 99.99% probability, the child was his. I watched his hands shake while reading the paper. Then suddenly, he started crying, not quietly, not elegantly, completely broken. "I'm sorry," he whispered over and over. "I'm so sorry." After that, he changed, deleted the other woman's number, started attending doctor appointments, bought baby clothes, rubbed my stomach every night like he was trying to apologize to our child. But some wounds heal too late, and betrayal changes the way love sounds. One evening, we sat together assembling a crib in silence. Halfway through, he looked at me and smiled softly. "We survived this." I looked at him carefully. "Did we?" Because surviving isn't the same as fixing. And just because trust comes back, doesn't mean respect does. So I handed him an envelope. He frowned, then opened it slowly. Divorce papers. His face crumbled instantly. "You're leaving me?" I nodded. Tears filled his eyes. "But I love you." I swallowed hard. "Maybe you do, but love without trust becomes poison." He dropped to his knees crying, begging, apologizing, promising therapy, promising change. But I was tired of protecting a man who destroyed me whenever his ego felt threatened. So I touched my stomach gently, looked him directly in the eyes, and whispered, "Our baby deserves peace. And honestly, so do I." Then I walked away, not as a cheater, not as a villain, but as a woman who finally chose herself. He thought infertility made him less of a man, but in the end, it was his pride that destroyed everything. The DNA test proved she was faithful, but sometimes the truth comes too late to save a marriage. If you were in her position, would you stay or leave? Comment below, and subscribe for more emotional cinematic stories.